This is the Soft Power Podcast, episode 31. To really compete as a professional or business owner, you have to own the room. That's why each week I bring you hot topics, tips, and expert interviews so you can stand out in competitive places. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Susan Callender, and thanks for joining me. Regardless of the state of the economy, there will always be well-educated, experienced, and skilled people who struggle to get hired or work with top clients. They're sharp, qualified, and likable, but they have few great options to increase their earning power and get in front of the people spending the most. Tell me something. If you could increase your ability to better understand the motives of the people you come across in your business day, connect with more clients, and close more sales, what would you need to accomplish that? My guest today is Dr. Nancy Zare. She wrote the definitive books on increasing trust, decreasing resistance, and opening communication channels with the people in your orbit. Dr. Zare is an Amazon best-selling author and past president of the National Speakers Association of New England. She also originated the likability system to teach business owners and service-based professionals how to open sales conversations, follow up, and get more business. Her latest book is Compelling Selling. Nancy, welcome to the Soft Power Podcast.
Oh, thank you, Susan. It's such a pleasure to be here and to talk with you and your audience.
So tell me, what's your story? How did you get started?
Well, I was born a psychologist. I happen to be the only girl, the last child in a family of boys in which my parents had a very stormy marital relationship. And at a very early age, I heard the cupboards banging, the glasses breaking, loud voices and so forth. And it was frightening, but more than the fright, it was really, I wanted to help my parents get along. And later, as a young child, I actually saw an episode on TV in which somebody focused on helping people get along. And I used that technique on my own parents. And believe it or not, they were open to letting me help them because they truly were in a sorry state. So like I said, I was born a psychologist. It wasn't until I went to college and took my first course in Intro to Psych that I realized I like this stuff. So that's how I got started, at least in the psychology part of my world.
So why do you feel that that's so important to the work that you do now?
Because it's still true that people need help getting along, that even though we may be native English-speaking individuals, we don't have the same dictionary and we don't mean the same thing when we are talking to each other. And yet the biggest mistake that most of us make is we assume the other person thinks like we do and is viewing the world the way we do. And of course, that's not so. Hence, this is important for people if you want to be more influential in talking with people, communicating, and being more effective in your job.
How did you integrate psychology into your work?
So shortly after I got my degree, I actually took a position in which I was marketing and selling employee assistance programs in the workplace. Employee assistance programs are a service that help individuals with mental health, addictions, other kinds of personal issues that interfere with their ability to do their job. And I believed in helping people with any kind of personal problem. Hence, I applied for and accepted this position. But candidly, I did not know about sales. In fact, as a child, I wanted nothing to do with selling. I had that stereotype view about that used car salesman who is, sleazy, manipulative, and simply, duping unsuspecting, individuals. So I had to learn what sales was all about. And I went back to school, not to get a degree. I went to the library to learn about sales. And that began my career understanding how people make buying decisions. I tripled revenues for that particular company where I was hired. And then around the same time, I was also invited to become a member of the infamous multi-level marketing,
Mm-hmm.
those things that a lot of people, network marketing, we kind of think is scammy or whatever. But, I believed in healthcare products, and I found I got great benefits. And so I was not only selling business to business, but then I found myself selling business to consumer. And in both cases, I needed to know how to sell.
What compelled you to become an author?
I think it's true with most authors that we have a point of view, we have expertise, we've learned something, and we want to share it with as many people as we can. Hence, that's why we write books. And, and that is definitely the motivation for my writing. I now have 4 books published. And, it's really a matter of what I've learned, and I want to gift it to others.
Tell me about compelling selling and what is the platinum rule?
Well, the platinum rule is exactly why I went back to that school library to learn about sales, and I came across a book called The Platinum Rule by Tony Alessandra. And we know the golden rule: treat others the way they want to, the way I want to be treated, and it's very humane. The platinum rule takes it just a little bit further and treat others the way they want to be treated. And that absolutely aligned with my values. And when I put that into practice, Susan, I quadrupled sales in 90 days. So there's something to understanding people from their perspective. And that's why I eventually created the likability system. It incorporates the platinum rule, which is being able to understand what your prospect wants, what they need, as opposed to assuming that you know the answers.
Tell us a little bit more about the likability system. What exactly is it?
So there are 5 steps to likability. And by the way, a likability is a word that I coined. It's not the word like, it's the word likability. It's a skill that raises the feeling or thought within the other person that we're alike. Hence, it's a skill. And it's a skill meaning you can learn it, and I obviously know how to teach it. So there are 5 steps to raising a likability. And before I share those 5 steps, let me just ask your listener to think for a moment, what would be the benefit of somebody thinking we're alike? How would you prospect that conversation you're having with someone? How would it change if that person were thinking, wow, you get me, we're alike?
I will go inside the brain of a listener right now and say that would allow me to relax and feel that we were on the same page. We were speaking the
Exactly.
same language.
Exactly. And that relaxation means that they're relaxed. Sales resistance will drop away. Everybody's got sales resistance. You go into a store and you definitely want to buy something, and a clerk comes up to you, and your first response is, no, I'm just looking. And we've all got sales resistance. We love to buy, but we don't like to be sold. Hence, that when you have a likability and we're on the same page, you are relaxed, the trust builds, sales resistance is diminished, and that opens the door to doing business together. Make sense?
It does, but tell me this, Nancy, when you go into a store, whether it's a car dealership or into a retail store, and you have a person who either at a distance or close up asks if you need help, and your initial reaction, your automatic reaction is, no, thank you, I'm just looking. But what can that salesperson say to create a dialogue?
So again, it depends on whether that salesperson has a likability.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do, there's a good chance that they're not going to be asking that question, how can I help you? Because that is basically going to turn people off.
It is.
Instead, they might say, hey, I noticed that you've just been looking at XYZ. You know, is there something special about that item that attracted you? In other words, you do want to start a conversation with somebody based on your observations of who they are and what they're doing. And as I mentioned, there are 5 steps to it. Step number 1 is to identify 4 different ways people are actually biologically hardwired to think and behave and respond in this world. There are 4 different what I call buying styles. Step number 2, what's your style? Why is that important? Because we tend to sell the way we buy. Uh, and if there are 4 styles and we're only speaking one of those 4 languages, 25% of the time we connect, 75% we are disconnected, not matched. Hence, no wonder why sales becomes a numbers game, or it takes a lot of no's before you're going to get a
Yes.
exactly. And so that is step number 2 is to know your style. Step number 3 is to diagnose the prospect style. As I said, that clerk in the store or the showroom or whatever, if they are very astute, there are 6 different ways you can figure out somebody's style without even having said a word. You can look at how they walk and talk, and how they dress, their behaviors. You might be able to look at correspondence. If, again, I'm not thinking so much now as the clerk as to, maybe other people who are professionally employed. So you might be able to look at their correspondence, the words they use, social media, their presence or lack thereof, their photos, their posts.
So that goes to doing your research prior to being in front of the prospect or the
Absolutely.
potential client.
Exactly. And so within a quick minute, you can have a guess, a hypothesis as to what style this person is prone to be. And hence you can approach them right from the get-go with talking to them in their preferred manner of conversation.
So which one of these is most aligned with a prospect being right in front of you without your having the benefit of research? What could I possibly say to just quickly ascertain their buying style?
So let's pretend we're on a Zoom meeting or we're in a face-to-face meeting. Obviously, the individual is going to be dressed. And so you're going to see the clothing choices that they've made. You're going to see their accessories. Are they wearing any kind of earrings, or do they have makeup, watches, eyeglasses, tattoos? You might see body art or piercings, etc. So just their appearance alone, what colors have they chosen? What kind of fabrics? Is it soft? Is it, are they rumpled? Are they well pressed and, buttoned up collar? All of these are indicators. So how they look is initially. If you then say hello and you hear and now in Zoom, you don't get a chance to actually greet somebody, but in person, you might see whether they extend a hand or whether they look you in the eye or whether they fail to look you in the eye, and etc. So these are, again, their behaviors will tell you something about them. Their vocal qualities. Are they a fast talker, slow talker? Do they use a lot of inflection, etc.? These are the things that you can tell without having done any research.
Are these similar to doing an MBTI or DISC or any of these other assessments of different types of personalities?
Again, it turns out that all of these personality systems go back to the era of Hippocrates, when he mentioned that there are 4 temperaments. And when I said that people are biologically hardwired, yes, there's actually been some recent research that shows that hormonally, biochemically, these 4 styles are very different. And so that it isn't just environmental, it's kind of the internal environment of your body in terms of these neurochemicals, in terms of how you might behave. And so my system is not so different from the others. However, it's based upon 2 premises. One, the values that each of these 4 types of people, 4 temperaments, what are their values? Because the values are valuable, but the ones you value and the ones I value might be quite different. So what are their values? And the second thing is, I use numbers to indicate the difference between these 4 styles. And the numbers have to do with the number of contacts needed for somebody to say yes. So I call them 2, 4, 6, and 8. And the number 2 buyer is clearly somebody that takes only 1 or 2 contacts to be able to say yes. The number 4 takes about 3 to 4 contacts. The number 6, 5 to 7. And the number 8 takes 8, 12, 20 or more contacts. They have to do a lot of research.
What makes a number 8 so resistant? What is it about their personality versus a 2? What is that chasm between the two, Nancy?
It has to do with the fact that the number 8 does not want to be fooled. They want to be a smart buyer. They want to have done their homework. They don't want to be made a fool of. And it's very important for them to do their research, form their own opinion. They're very independent thinkers, and hence they don't want to be pushed in any way when it comes to selling or to buying. Whereas the number 2 is in a hurry. They value speed. They value efficiency. They value quickness, decisiveness, because they want to live life to the full. They don't want to be bogged down with information and research and details. They want to get on with it because life is to be enjoyed.
Are we born that way, or are they informed by our life's experiences?
We are actually, like I say, biologically born that way with the chemicals that bathe our systems. So the number 2 person is just higher in dopamine. The number 8 person is higher in testosterone, both male and female. And those differences make for a very different person.
When I think of an 8, I'm assuming that person perhaps has been burned. Perhaps they've had negative experiences that they have gone from. Perhaps they started out in life, maybe just out of school in their first jobs. They were maybe a 4 leaning towards a 6, but something happened and now they're an 8. Is that a possibility?
I'm smiling because we often will use we are, by the way, a combination of all 4 styles. There is no such thing as a pure 8 or pure 2 or pure anything. We have all 4 styles within us, just in a different order and a different amount. And so I'm smiling because of the fact that I'm very strong and very high in number 8, but it's a defense for me. You see, I'm actually a number 4, a very friendly, trusting person who wants to connect with people. But I've been hurt, and hence, how do I protect myself from being so gullible and taken advantage of? Well, I bring out my intellectual prowess, and I become very, put up the defenses, and hence take longer before I warm up.
Can a 2 get burned, and can an 8 be the victor in the end because they didn't go for something that ended up not being a great deal?
So can a 2 get burned? They can and they do, but you see, they love the experience of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And so for them, it's not getting burned. It's the adventure. It's the excitement. It's the thrill.
That's why hence the dopamine.
Yeah. So for
Mm-hmm.
them, it's not, they wouldn't even define, I'm not sure they'd use the word being burned, because for them, it's all pure excitement. And I'll share a very quick story of somebody who's very high in number 2, happened to be in a corporation in a very high position, was overseas and got struck by a bus in England and was in a coma for a while. Long recovery period. Hence, the company, of course, had to replace him. And because of the care that he received, and he saw how people worked so diligently on his behalf to help him get well, he realized that his lifestyle of rush and pace and, go-getter and drive and success, he shifted to becoming a different style. And remember, we have all 4 styles within us, but he no longer saw the benefit of being that mad scientist, rush, 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 get it all done. And, instead he saw the value of connection.
Is it possible that a 2 does not have the patience, if they're in the role of the seller, that they do not have the patience for an 8?
I'm smiling because you're so astute in figuring this out. And it's very true. I actually have a quiz that I created, what's your major selling mistake? And that number 2 style, their major selling mistake is that they have no patience, they are too quick, they don't take their time, they tend to talk in, hyperboles, it's all excitement and, kind of fluff because they're eager for the sale, they're eager to go on to the next conquest. And so these are some of their shortcomings as a salesperson. To the other 3 styles, this is offensive and annoying and rubs them the wrong way. But I will tell you that every style rubs somebody the wrong way. And hence, that's why sales becomes a numbers game. If you don't learn how to, 1, identify the other person's style, and then 2, shift yourself authentically to talk in that language. That's where the mismatch occurs, and that's why so many people don't close sales.
Okay. 2 things, and I don't want to forget, you mentioned that you have a quiz. Can my listeners find that on your website, or where is that available for them?
I will make it available for them. I know I didn't give it to you in the program notes, but I'll be happy to share with you the link. Yeah, it's a free quiz, and there's a free report that accompanies it so that you can identify your style.
Is it possible that an 8 is not a good salesperson or not the most outgoing person in the office? And if they are in the position of trying to sell something, if you will, they say, oh, you probably don't want that. I don't think you need that. Like they're just not good at it because it takes them so many touch points to get something sold.
So just like the number 2 has failings as a seller, the number 8 has failings too.
Mm-hmm.
Their biggest failing is actually that they give too much information. You see, they made the purchase based upon when it made sense, it was logical, they had done their homework and due diligence, and they came to the conclusion that this was a good buy. And so they made the choice to go forward. And so they assume, they project onto their prospect that the prospect's going to want the same amount of information. Well, you and I both know that when somebody is pouring information that you don't want, it is boring. You want to get out of there. You want to escape, like, oh my God, please give me a break. So, and the number 8 often doesn't see the cues and hence continues to give you information. So that is one of their major failing points. A second one is that they actually hate to sell. They don't like to be pressured into making a buying decision. So they, again, project that feeling onto you. If they don't want to be pressured, they shouldn't pressure you. So they won't even ask for the sale. In fact, it should be so logical after what I just said that I don't need to ask you. You'll just make up your own mind. So these are some of the areas where the number 8 struggles. But does that mean they're a bad salesperson? Not at all. Because in the high-tech field, where things are, of course, full of all sorts of information, you need a number 8, especially one who has good communication skills to explain what the heck this is. And again, the best salesperson outsells the average 57-1 because he or she has the ability to be a chameleon, to shift authentically, not monkey see, monkey do. It's not a copycat thing, but to shift authentically and speak the value language of the prospect.
How important are these styles, not in relation to sales, but just basic workplace client relationships? Do they come into play there as well?
Oh, absolutely. Because again, you get annoyed by that coworker who is, in a rush, in a hurry, doesn't listen to you, is running around, etc. It annoys you. You also get annoyed by the worker who might be taking their time and slow, and they've got a thought, but would you please get to the bottom line? I mean, so
Mm-hmm.
again, does this impact relationships? All the time. All the time. And just like it impacted my parents, they were different styles. And somehow I was able to understand and communicate with both my parents effectively, but they failed to do that with each other. But this is something you can learn too. I'm watching them be who they are, and you can enjoy it instead of, condone it or judge it. Of course, many of us are doing business now by on the phone or through conference calls or Zoom meetings like this. And again, even though we may not be physically in the same room, we are experiencing the mannerisms of the other people. And when somebody rubs you the wrong way, there's a good chance it's because their style is different from yours. It's not bad, it's just different. And vice versa, you may be rubbing them the wrong way, again, simply because it's style. So when you are able to see the style, then again you can put it in perspective and you can move away from it without it being so annoying and detrimental to your relationship. And that includes bosses as well as subordinates, co-workers, vendors, anyone, obviously prospects and clients that you need to connect with. If you are a student of a likability, I do give you, I said, 6 different ways to know somebody's style. And that if you're in the midst of some sort of situation, maybe the best thing to do is simply to not try to have the last word and become an observer. Watch what's going on rather than feel that you have to dominate or make the final decision. Um, a lot of communication, we do more talking than listening. And I'm sure you've heard the adage that, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth and they should be used in that proportion. Well, there is one of the best things about communication is to listen. There's a lot that we can learn. And one of the things that I really give people through the likability system is a way to categorize and understand information that you're gathering anyway, but you didn't know what it meant. And I'm able to help you interpret what it means by giving you an understanding of how that applies. And when you then understand how this person is wired and how they're tending to think and act and respond, now you have the upper hand in terms of how can you approach them in order to get business done most effectively.
What was your first career job? And had you known all of this information, had you done all of this research then, what would you do differently?
Well, other than, being in high school with some kind of, gobbledygook type jobs, the first job that I had after being an undergraduate is I worked at the alcohol study unit of Boston City Hospital, which is now defunct, that particular unit. But I worked doing statistics and research and so forth. And my boss there was a wonderful example. He happened to be a Harvard professor who was going for tenure. So Harvard being a very strict academic institution, it was necessary for him to publish. Hence, I was helping him with statistics and research. But what I learned is the difference between quality and just getting published for sake of getting published. So he was a very good role model for me in terms of, I saw he was very strong too.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what a 2 was at that time, but he was a very strong 2. He just wanted to get things done and off his plate. And as you can appreciate, I was approaching it from a very different avenue, but he was a very good teacher in that sense of how I saw him in the workplace.
Do you think that most people are good communicators or they struggle?
I think that we like to believe we're good communicators. I think that we're actually not so good as we think, especially if you ask somebody, 5 minutes, an hour later, what they heard or saw, their ability to tell you is poor. We know what's going on in our heads, how we're processing things, but we really are not listening carefully to the other person.
I have a large contingent of my podcast listeners that label themselves as introverted or quiet or reserved, but professionals nonetheless, highly accomplished professionals. Is there something within compelling selling and these different styles that can help them in particular, Nancy?
Well, being an introvert myself, I believe that is that we tend as introverts actually to be better at observing and listening than the so-called extrovert. What we're not always able to do is speak up. Because if we don't feel confident in what we're about to say, then we usually curb what we're saying. And so I would share with you that because you have a wealth of wisdom that you have acquired through your observations and through your careful study of other people, that, time to speak up. We need your gifts. And I know you're talented. I know you're skilled. I also know that you struggle at times to be recognized for your skill. And that's why I believe, again, compelling selling can help you not only gain more understanding, but maybe give you that push you need to get out there and to let the world experience your talents.
How does your book make the world better?
By giving people a very simple tool, the likability system, in order to understand other people, how they behave, and again, maybe to understand yourself as well.
What's next for you?
Well, what's next is actually an additional course that I'm working on, a video course. It's going to be selling by numbers, 2, 4, 6, and 8. I think the numbers are so compelling to help you understand that it takes follow-up, which is a sales activity that's very underrated, because most people, 3% of the population buys on the first contact. Everybody else needs follow-up. Hence, if you're not following up, you're leaving money on the table.
I'll tell you what I appreciated about compelling selling is that it's a quick read. It's somewhere in the area of 100 pages or so. And I read a lot. I read pretty much every day. And so many books are very simple ideas, great ideas, but simple ideas wrapped up in far too many pages.
Exactly.
Compelling Selling is Dr. Zare's latest book, and I'll include all the appropriate links in the show notes. Dr. Zare, thanks for joining me today.
To your sales success, thanks for having me.
Soft Power Society, if you struggle to make small talk or increase your circle of friends, Social Skills Secrets was written just for you. It's full of actionable, step-by-step guidance to help you live the full and fun life that's intended for you. You can get your free copy at businessclass.expert/social. Thanks for joining me today. Bye for now.